So how do we define a youth? Actually, youth is, maybe we can define it as a transition age from childhood to adulthood, that is from dependence to independence, or maybe a phase when one completes his education and moves on to stand on his own feet. And this is very crucial period of his life cycle rather. And this transition age is differently defined. For example, UN defines it the age between 15 and 24. National Youth Policy in India, 2003, considered 13 to 35 years, but later on revised in 2014 between the ages of 15 and 29. Today, India stands with the biggest population in the world, with 65% of Indians being dynamic, young population under the age of 35. And we call them dynamic because youth is the most energetic and productive section of any society. A country's ability and potential for growth are determined by the size and strength of its youth population, which, as already said, that they are the demographic dividends for the country. Which means, that this calls for an economic trigger, maybe when the country has more hands to work, which are available at present, than more mouths to feed. And therefore, we are at an advantageous position, but it is believed that this large youth population can see tremendous growth only if the government or we invest in young people's education, skill and health, and protect and guarantee their rights. But unfortunately, after the COVID-19, or maybe during the COVID-19, it hit the employability rate throughout the globe in general and India in particular. According to the Global Employment Trend for Youth 2022 report, India experienced severe unemployment during 20 and 21. And we are still lagging behind. I won't talk about the difference in unemployment between Muslims or minorities or other categories, because in general the situation is very particular. And the nature of employment that India is witnessing is very peculiar. It has some very peculiar features. The first one is that we see the data that the unemployment level was as high as 28.26% in 2021 in comparison to 23% in 2018, in spite of the fact that India witnessed substantial expansion in the higher education sector, that is from 38.5 million students studying in 2019-20 as compared to 29.2% in 2011-12. That was a substantial increase. And that is, GR has improved, that is gross enrollment ratio, it is improved by 7.9%. So actually when we look at this data, there seems that there is no problem with the demand and supply of graduates as far as quantity aspect is concerned. But in reality, all the graduates are unable to get suitable in employment, and simultaneously what we see that the industry also struggles to get a suitable candidate. And this situation can be attributed to maybe skill mismatch or maybe skill gap that is existing. There exist three types of skill mismatch. The one is overeducation. At the individual level, overeducation is defined as a form of a skill gap where overqualified people with tertiary education are hired for jobs that are not required for such qualification. For example, maybe a postgraduate in economics is hired as a bus driver. This is because of oversupply. And then they are underpaid also. They have to compromise because of oversupply. Second is skill mismatch in technical education, where people have received the higher education in technical field, maybe in agriculture, engineering or technology, but they end up in working or compromising that do not require that training. Maybe we can say an example that an agricultural scientist is appointed as a director in a firm because the screening was done on the basis of his higher education degree. And the third skill gap is the quality skill gap. For example, a graduate from commerce, he has to do he has to be trained in following the accounting procedure of any particular firm. So because, he is educated, he is in commerce, we cannot take it for granted. And then the companies have to spend money on training that person for taking care of the accounting procedures. So, actually the situation is something like a note from the BBC came up, that is, the more educated a person is, the more likely it is that they will remain jobless and unwilling to take up low-paying and precarious informal jobs. Another feature is jobless growth in India. It is a very peculiar feature. The share of salaried employment fell from 29.9% to 21.3% in the last 5 years. And one of the major anomaly that is witnessed is in these years, that is jobless growth, in spite of the economy growing at more than 7% during that period. The Center for Monitoring and Indian Economy, CMIE, explained that there is stagnation in salaried jobs and the sharp rise in entrepreneurship indicated the self-employment people drive much of India's entrepreneurial growth. Actually, see, to become an entrepreneur, maybe the objective is not to create employment, but maybe to get self-employed. We find, usually, I can give you an example, freelancers. There are so many freelancing journalists these days. So, getting so popular. For example, maybe I am going for a conference and there are freelancers from mass communication department. I don't have to pay and he is not jobless too at the same time. And this is because between 2010 and 20, India saw a remarkable rise in the adoption of digital technologies aided by availability of cheap data, low-cost mobile phones, etc., etc. And it's really surprising that in 2017, freelance workers from India had a 24% share of the online global gig economy. These numbers grew further due to drop in full-time jobs and the rise of remote work during the pandemic. And the third feature is that 70% of the workforce is still engaged in informal and unorganized sector, including self-employment in micro, that is MSMEs. Which is, it does not provide a very stable job opportunity or maybe earning opportunity, and it is also, it is not that assured platform. And despite of so many government policies, that is Skill India Mission, maybe Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana, etc., youth are still unemployed and they are persisting to a large extent. So the problem is big and it is complicated. Now the question rises on the quality and the pedagogy of a primary and higher education system and the quality of technical and vocational and education training infrastructure. Actually, what we all have already discussed and observed, the general education system is too much focused on grades and careers instead of being oriented towards innovations or entrepreneurship. While industry which craves solution to their problems, academic institutions, they are generally too busy performing routine academic exercises, churning out educated manpower that is often ill-suited to their innovative industries or entrepreneurship. Actually, skilling in India, it is a massive challenge because of the wide rift between the traditional primary, secondary education. Skill deficit can be attributed to many factors. Maybe, the government has made lots of efforts to bring a change in our new education policy, but I think that will take a lot of time because impact can only be seen after it has been implemented. So what we need to do is, the first thing that we need to do is change the mindset. Let us start with very small step. Just now, Zafar Saab said that parents' mindset have to be changed. Yes, I fully agree with him. As soon as we get our children registered in the school, we have the objective focused on securing a very good job for him. Maybe, he is made to believe since childhood that you are studying to become a doctor or engineer or teacher or maybe a civil servant. What about other things? All are not equally talented. All cannot qualify civil services. All cannot become doctors. So I insist here that the attitude and perception call for a drastic modification. Mindset needs to be shifted from getting a decent job to creating a decent job. Or maybe acquiring something for oneself. But then again, freelancing comes. But that's not a solution for an economy on a larger scale. I think the syllabus at the primary and middle school must include entrepreneurship and self-employment activities. It must include internship, skill development activities. For example, maybe they should be trained in production, manufacturing, selling, costing, negotiating, maybe advertising, marketing, because we have to find out the talents, we have to identify the talents from the childhood onwards. Then motivational case studies regarding the entrepreneurs and corporate sector are completely missing from our syllabus. That should be included from the school level, from the primary level itself. The skill deficit in India requires a policy and institutional framework which is based on a partnership between government, industry, educational institution and the civil society. It is very important. We cannot keep away civil society apart and frame anything for them. We have to take them into the partnership. University and colleges are threshold for youth to enter the employment market. So steps are already taken by the government. So many policies are coming in. I think we have lots of them. But what is more important required is the earnest execution and implementations of those framed policies. They are not being followed earnestly. Root level tak unka fayda nahi pahunch raha hai. My submission here is that it also becomes, nowadays necessary to blend theoretical and conceptual knowledge. Last semester in all the colleges, because so many people are from academics here, last semester they have, whether science, art or commerce or management. In addition to compulsory research or project work, they all have training, project work or internship already है. और उसके बदले में उनको credit score भी मिलता है बच्चों को. What I suggest is that a student must be provided with an option of startup also. That is, if a student comes up with a marketable research product or research idea, sometimes in engineering student they come up with brilliant research output products. If they come out with those ideas, then he should be allowed to initiate a startup in return for a credit score. This thing is happening already in the developed nation. One good example is from the Ecole University in Switzerland. It is the world leading hospitality management university, where we have the dual education approach, that is combining the practical and theoretical learning. Results, it has resulted already in a very high youth employment rates there. And in Russia also I have some case studies. I have personally known people who have started in the last semester their businesses. They are allowed to do that. The university provides all the aids, that is banking, management, accounting. All the support system is provided. Once the student starts up his own business, he is given scores for that, credit marks for that. And after that, it is his choice. And obviously, एक बार start कर देता है बंदा business तो बंद नहीं करता है, वो चलता रहता है.
May I request you to wind up, please?
Yes, please.
May I request you to wind up, please?
Just 1 minute.
Right, sure.
Okay, and then the next submission is that blending of theoretical and conceptual knowledge also calls for teaching the subjects practically. All the subjects must be taught practically because, our academic system is learning, mugging, and that it is, I always call it a copy and paste system. Because we are just mugging and pouring it out in the exams and getting scores and 90%, 99% we are brilliant. No. We are just cramming things. All the subjects must be taught practically. For example, the MOU which ma'am mentioned just now, that is, entrepreneurship is taught to the students of commerce in the University of Houston. That is by supervising and guiding an entrepreneur under himself. A student is guides and they teach them how to start a business, and that's where they make some underprivileged community people to start their businesses. And fortunately, I got this MOU signed, and we have already implemented in the AMU in the Department of Commerce, and we have gone through two workshops with very successful results. The commerce students become the consultants. They help the people who want to start a business from underprivileged communities or engineering student, and we have very, good results this time also and previously also. So this must be a part of curriculum now. It's high time it must come in India also. And finally, I would say that the CSR mandates must also be liberal for an appropriation of entrepreneurial skill development workshops and university program. So to conclude, India has a large demographically diverse population. However, investment in science, technology and innovations are not yet translating into the desired growth reality which was needed. So realizing that innovation-led entrepreneurship development holds promise for growth, the government has already taken major policy initiative, but its success depends on its implementation and execution. However, the new direction reflects a strong growth aspiration and resonates with the zeal and zest of the youth who must be prepared for the adventurous path of innovation-based entrepreneurship. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr.